Welcome. Namaste. Welcome back to your basic foundational yoga posture of the week, where over the last several weeks and select weeks moving forward, we are exploring and breaking down certain specific basic foundational yoga postures. So this series is really great for people who are brand new to yoga, who don't understand or don't know a lot of what it's about. And so this series goes over a lot of postures that are very beginner, very introductory. And so what I do is I come into the posture in the traditional sense, and then I offer some modifications for folks who have a hard time coming into the posture the traditional way. If you have a body, you can do yoga. And if you cannot do it in the traditional sense, then you can always absolutely use a plethora of props or other modifications to help you get into your best version of the posture in your own beautiful body. My name is Jessie, aka Moonchild Yoga. Thank you so much for being interested in this content. And if you enjoy this video and you would like to see more of this sort of thing, please feel free to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. So this week's posture, all right, without further ado, we're going to get started. This week's posture is our seated butterfly or Baddha Konasana pose. So to come into this posture in the traditional sense, you're going to be seated in your Dandasana staff pose. So I'm facing you, so that way you can see a little bit better. So you're going to be seated in your Dandasana staff pose. You're going to grow long in your spine and keep your shoulders soft, soften your face and jaw. And then you're going to bring the soles of your feet to touch together and bend your knees out to the sides. So for me, I have a lot of knee sensitivity, as I have mentioned in previous videos. So I kind of have to help my legs along a little bit here. And you can place your hands right above your ankles. You can even also rest them on your knees if that works better for you. That creates a lot of strain in my inner groin area and where my hips meet my legs. So I like to kind of rest my hands on my ankles. And once again, this is something for you to explore. So this is something for you to kind of play around with, explore different options and see what works best in your body. So take a long breath in here, find length in your spine, and then breath out, seeing if you can keep your spine straight. You're going to potentially bring your hands around your toes and let your face come down towards your feet. So you're going to feel a lot of opening in this area, a lot of sensation. So just being mindful of that. And then just simply breathe in to what you feel here. And then to come out of the posture, breathing in, we're going to rise all the way back up to a seated position to safely let your legs extend long. I suggest bringing your hands to the outsides of your knees. Let your knees come together. And then as you exhale, you'll return to your Dandasana staff pose. And some modifications of our lovely Baddha Konasana butterfly pose. Once you have come into the posture, if you don't like the idea of your knees hanging way above the earth, I am somebody, I cannot get my knees all the way down. I do not have that opening in my hips yet, if ever. So a way that you can relieve that is the use of blocks or even thick books. So if you don't have actual yoga blocks, you can use a sturdy stack of books in place of your blocks, magazines, anything like that that you think will be sufficient. And so you'll place your blocks or whatever thing that you are using in place of the blocks under your knees. And then having your knees resting on the blocks definitely takes the stress and strain off of the knees floating up off of the earth. And then once again, you're going to rest your hands wherever is comfortable in your body. So that can be on your knees, that can be on your ankles, right above your ankles. You can even reach your hands down to your feet before you come into the folding position. You find a long spine here as you breathe in, sending your breath out through the crown of the head. Then as you breathe out, see if you can keep the length in your spine, folding forward, placing your hands wherever is comfortable. So if you have the space, you might even reach your hands even further forward. And letting your face come down toward your feet here. And once again, you're going to feel a real intense opening in the area of your inner groin and your hips. And just sending your breath to those spaces. The spaces where you feel the most sensation. And then take a deep breath in to come out of the posture, rising your torso all the way back up. Breath out, we're going to bring our palms to the outsides of the knees, letting the knees come into center. You may even let your hands come behind you and windshield wiper your knees from side to side here, just to kind of release any tension that may have built up. From exploring our lovely Baddha Konasana butterfly pose. And then coming back to center, back to stillness, and we're going to return back to our Dandasana staff pose. And another modification, our trusty bolster or pillow, or even large folded blanket. So if you have a thick, heavy blanket to place under the hips, is a great way to take some of the stress and strain off of the knees, having your hips seated all the way down on the earth. This is a really great modification for that. And so soles of the feet together, knees are out to the sides. And another modification that I'm going to show you while we're here is using blocks under your face. So that requires me and my own body, because my legs aren't very long, to kind of move the soles of the feet a little further forward. And then I'll place one block on its highest setting in between my legs towards my feet, and then the other block on the second setting. And then as I inhale and grow long in the spine, let the shoulders be soft down the back and softening my face and jaw. And then when I exhale and lean forward, I can rest my forehead on the block. So in this modification, in my own mind, it's not as important to have the long spine. You can certainly try that if you would like your feet to go a little further and you'd like to keep the spine straight. That is okay to do. You move the blocks a little more forward. But for me, I would prefer to keep my feet back a little further, because then I get more of an intense opening in my hips and inner groins, and then just simply rounding the spine and letting the forehead rest. So I'm not concentrating on the length in the spine so much with this modification. And then simply breathing in to what you feel here. And then take a deep breath in, letting your torso stack back up. So coming back up to neutral position to come out of the posture. And then as you exhale, you're going to move your blocks over to the sides. And same as before, we always want to practice safety. So we don't want to hurt ourselves. So we don't want to jerk ourselves out of these postures. So bringing the palms of the hands on the outsides of the knees, let your knees touch together, and then coming back to your Dandasana staff pose. And then, of course, as we did when we were seated in the traditional with the sits bones all the way down on the mat on the earth, If you would prefer to support your knees while your hips are on the bolster, you can always have the blocks placed under your knees to help with extra support as you explore your lovely Baddha Konasana butterfly pose. So coming into it once again, take a deep breath in, grow long in the spine here. Palms are resting on the thighs or even on the knees. Then as you exhale, see if you can continue to maintain the length in your spine. And coming into the posture just as you did before, leaning your face down toward your feet and noticing what might be different now by using these props. So what might be different? What you might feel that might be different here. And then breathing into what you notice, sending your breath to those areas that you feel the most sensation. And so sometimes when we send our breath to those areas, it kind of gives them the signal to just relax and help to adapt more into the posture. And then, of course, as before, to come out, take a breath in, rising your torso all the way back up. Breath out, palms on the outsides of the knees, bringing your knees to touch, straightening your legs. Maybe you even bounce your knees a little bit in case any tension built up there from exploring the posture. And then coming back to stillness, back to your Dandasana, staff pose. If you've been following along with my other content related to our basic foundational yoga postures of the week, you will note that most all of them can be done in a chair. So our Baddha Konasana butterfly pose is no exception. So if you're using just a chair as a prop, this is great for folks who can't get down on the floor or who can get down but can't get back up. Or it's just too much in their physical body to be able to adapt to this posture from a seated all the way down position. Having the chair to take up space between the earth and your sits bones is a great option. And so, same as before, you're going to find length in the spine, breathing long and tall. Let your shoulders soften down your back. Bring the soles of the feet to touch together and let your knees hang out to the sides as far as they will. And so even though you're seated in a chair, you're still going to feel some really nice inner groin, hamstring and hip opening here. And then as you exhale, you're leaning forward as far as you can go. So you want to try to keep the length in your spine. So try to avoid the hunchback position. You want to try to keep the length in your spine. Breathe out through the crown of the head here. And then exhale, letting your navel travel back towards your spine. So you're coming down any amount as you fold forward. If you can't get your face all the way down towards your feet, by all means, there's no need. I would imagine that most folks that are doing this in a chair probably would struggle with that, and that's totally okay. And then send your breath into the areas of most sensation. And then, of course, to come out of the posture, take a breath in, rise your torso all the way back up. Remember, safety is always the goal, so bring the palms to the outsides of the knees. Breath out. Let your knees come back together. And make your way back to a neutral seated position. And another modification to use along with the chair is, of course, our lovely blocks. So you can use a block or blocks. And once again, if you don't have blocks, please feel free to use a sturdy, thick book or a sturdy stack of books as a modification. If you are using the books, they're not as stable as blocks because they're not as solid. So please be mindful of that. In any postures, the books can certainly be a sufficient substitute for a block or blocks. but they do have a little more movement, a little more give. So you want to be careful and not put a lot of weight on them. And so for our seated Baddha Konasana, so Baddha Konasana in a chair, we're going to place our blocks just a little bit further out in front of the chair. Bring the soles of the feet to touch on the blocks. Right away, you will notice that there is a difference, even if you stay seated. So if you don't like the idea of folding forward, you can always let your knees hang out to the sides and simply stay seated. And that's either in a chair or down on the earth. You will still get some benefit, especially if you have a lot of tightness in your hips or hamstrings, or you're brand new to the practice of yoga or this posture. So if you're coming with me, having the soles of the feet touching on the blocks or block, take a deep breath in, find length in the spine, keep the shoulders soft, soften your face and jaw, breath out, see if you can keep the length in the spine, and begin to fold forward and let your hands travel down as far as they will go. So if having them down towards your feet doesn't work, you can always have them resting, hanging by your sides here. And wherever you are in the pose, you're sending your breath into the areas of most sensation, keeping the length in the spine. So you want to keep your shoulders soft. You want to keep the upper spine nice and long, and you want to tuck your tailbone forward and down. So that really keeps the spine nice and long. And then just simply breathing into what you feel here. And then to come out of the posture, take a breath in, chin in towards the chest. We float our torso back up to stack over our hips. Open your eyes if they are closed. Bring the palms of the hands to the outsides of the knees. Drawing your knees in towards center. And then as you exhale, you're going to step the soles of the feet down towards the earth and make your way back to a neutral seated position. And so another modification for this posture, if being in a seated position is too much for your body, or if you don't like the idea of having your knees hanging out to the sides while your spine is long in an upright position, you can always bring the soles of the feet together and let your knees hang out to the sides. Grow long and tall in the spine as you breathe in. As you breathe out, recline your upper body. So coming all the way down to the earth with your upper body. So to get the most out of this posture by doing that, you can always just gently tuck your tailbone forward and up towards your belly button and let your chin come in towards your chest. Relax your shoulders down your back. And simply breathe into what you feel here. You can let your palms rest on the earth by your hips. You can also let your palms rest right in the areas. So right in kind of in between where your upper hip bones are and where your groin starts to come into the triangle there. So just letting your palms rest there and just simply breathe in to what you feel here. And of course, as always, to come out of the posture, we want to be safe. So the first thing we want to do is take our palms to the outsides of the knees. Let the knees come into touch. Perhaps you even let your arms come into a T shape and just windshield wiper your knees. So this is a really great way to kind of loosen up any tension that may have built up while you were in the posture. And then coming back to center, back to stillness, coming onto your forearms or even rolling over onto your side. And then you would just make your way back up to a comfortable seated position. So your Dandasana staff pose. Another modification here for your Supta Baddha Konasana, reclined butterfly pose, is to have those blocks underneath of the knees. So this really gives the extra support here. It really helps to relieve a lot of the stress and strain and sensation that you may be feeling in the area of your frontal hip flexors. And so if you choose to use the blocks under the knees, you would simply come into the posture as we did before. So you'd have the soles of the feet touching, knees out to the sides, while you're sitting tall. And then you would simply just let your torso come back on the earth as you breathe out, placing each one of the blocks under each one of your knees. Let your hands, palms rest on the earth. You can have the backs of the hands with the palms up towards the sky, or you can come into the idea of having the palms resting on those frontal hip flexors once again. And then sending the breath into the area of most sensation. So remembering to have our tailbone tucked up towards our navel, and the shoulders soft down the back, chin and towards the chest. So this presses the entirety of your spine into the earth. And then, of course, to come out of the posture, safety first. So gently open your eyes, remove your hands from wherever they are, bringing your palms to the outsides of your knees. Let your knees come in towards each other, moving the blocks out of the way. And perhaps coming into those windshield wipers once again. So letting your knees fall from side to side. And then coming back to center, back to stillness, coming up onto your forearms or even rolling over onto one side. And then making your way back up as you will in your own time to your seated staff pose, Dandasana. Some benefits of our Baddha Konasana butterfly pose is it helps to relieve tension, which a lot of yoga postures will do that. It can improve pelvic health. It helps to stretch the inner groins, and also the hips, helps to open up through the hips. Contraindications, you either want to heavily modify or not practice this posture at all. If you have severe knee issues, severe arthritis. I have arthritis in my right knee, and has been diagnosed as severe, and I can still come into the posture as long as I use blocks. As a matter of fact, butterfly pose in my body is easier than how I'm seated right now. This creates a lot more strain for me, particularly if I don't have the blocks. With the blocks, I'm okay. So, if you have severe knee issues, if you have any sort of ligament tears in those areas, or, hamstring tear or any sort of stuff like that, you definitely don't want to practice this pose. If you are taking the folding option where you fold forward, so again, I know that for most of this video, I showed the posture where you would fold forward. You don't have to. You can stay seated just as I am right now, bringing the soles of the feet together. And if that's enough for you, you will still get some benefit in the areas of the hips and the inner groin muscles, and those other areas mentioned. So if you're coming into the folding option, noting any back pain. So if you have lower back pain or any sort of back pain, you may want to back off or modify even more. Thank you so much for watching this video in its entirety. I always greatly appreciate anybody's feedback or comments. Please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more content of this nature. And I hope you have a lovely day. Namaste.